This episode goes out to Carl in Wenatchee.
Hi there, Megan Robinson here. Welcome to the 26th episode of the Nightblade Epic Podcast. This is the last episode of Season 1, so we're going to skip any announcements. Instead, we want to thank you for being here and for coming with us on the wild ride we've had for the last 7 months. After this episode, we're taking a 4-week break before we release your special surprise. Another 4 weeks after that, the show returns with new episodes from Mystic, the next book in the series. If you need to get your Underrealm fix during the break, don't forget to visit our Discord server at underrealm.net/Discord. You'll find a chat room full of other Underrealm nerds just like you, talking about books, movies, writing, and of course, this podcast. We hope to see you there. Okay, it's time for today's episode. Today, you're getting Chapter 40 of Nightblade. When we left off, Lauren had found Jordell only moments before falling unconscious from the poison of a deadly viper. Enjoy!
Nightblade, Chapter 40. Blinding light pierced Lauren's eyes, and she rolled away from it with a groan. Her head, her body, every part of her hurt. Only stillness kept the pain from lancing back through her, so still she remained. "You are awake!" Lauren recognized the voice a moment before Jem rolled her on her back and cool water splashed against her lips. It spread across her face and she pushed him away with a cough. "Well, open your mouth then," grumbled Jem. Lauren obeyed and he poured enough water into her throat to choke her. "Leave off, Jem!" cried Lauren. Pushing him away hurt, but it seemed better than drowning. Jem sniffed as he backed away. "I should fetch the apothecary in any case. A moment." He vanished through the door. Lauren groaned again and slumped back onto the straw pallet. A short while passed before she could keep her eyes open long enough to study the room. The blinding light that had woken her proved to be only the dim glow of a torch set in the wall. Its fire licked and danced against a ceiling of red stone. That probably meant she was underground, in a cellar or basement. And indeed, she could see many barrels stacked in the dark corners of the room, no doubt filled with the noxious chemicals apothecaries always kept on hand. Above the barrels hung many racks of herbs bound with string. Their odor filled the air, burning Lauren's nose. Jem returned with the apothecary, a surprisingly young man in the white robes of his trade. He came to her, shaved pate glinting in the torchlight, and without a word seized her face, pulling her eyelids wide open. "Get off!" cried Lauren, but she proved too weak to push him away, and the apothecary went on undeterred. She suffered his ministrations in a sullen silence. After her eyes, he held open her mouth, looking over her teeth and gums with a concerned expression. Then he took her hands and inspected, of all things, her fingernails. Finally, he sat back with a clucking of his tongue. "None the worse for wear?" he said easily. "My head disagrees." "As one should expect when tangling with clouded vipers," said the apothecary. "Or such is what I gathered from your tale of the snake's looks, though you half raved at the time. Jordell told me how you came to your disagreement with one, and if words may come freely, it is an unbelievable tale. As a consequence, I do not believe it. But it is none of my business, of course." Lauren eyed the man beneath hooded lids, wondering if Jordell had told the truth or some fiction, and wondering which would be harder to believe. "Where is he, anyway? Jordell, I mean." "Upstairs, finishing breakfast. He will be down presently. I am Alan, by the by. I am just as honored to meet you as you seem to be to meet me." Breakfast. Lauren panicked, looking at Jem. "What day is it?" "The day after your mad scheme," said Jem, glaring at her. "Which, I will say again, was a fool's notion, as is only further proven by each new bit of your foolery." The day after. That meant tonight Zane and Annis would ride on, without her or Jem. "We must go," said Lauren, struggling up. The apothecary pushed her down. "That is as may be, but take it slow, at least until you have spoken to Jordell and given your body some time to realize it has woken." Lauren settled back. She could wait a short while, she supposed. "Thank you, then. I imagine I owe you my life?" "Who, me?" Alan snorted. "Hardly. I only kept you comfortable and helped you wake a bit earlier, and with a little less pain. You would have slept for a week without me, but not forever." Lauren stared at him without understanding. "But the snake bite?" "A clouded viper? They're as fatal as a garden snake. Do muddle their mind a bit, though. Powerful hard to tell a lie when their venom is in your blood. What I do not understand is how one found its way into Cabras." It would seem Jordell had not told the truth then, or at least not all of it. Then again, he did not even know all the truth of her tale. Lauren only half remembered it herself. With that thought, a bit more came back to her. The black crystals, mage stones, she supposed, and the dagger. Her hand flew to her belt. It was missing. Eyes wide with panic, she looked to Jem. The boy stood forth, sniffing importantly. "Good sir apothecary, might I have a word alone with my compatriot? Certain matters of great import must be discussed." Alan glanced over his shoulder. "Oh, yes, the children have many important matters, I am sure." He rose to his feet and made for the door. "Very well, then, only I will say that Jordell will be down in a moment or two. Then, as I have told him often, I would be quit of you sooner than later, if given my way." As soon as the door closed behind the apothecary, Jem knelt beside Lauren, lowering his face to a whisper, and said, "I have it." He reached under his shirt and withdrew the dagger, safe in its leather sheath. "I nicked it once their backs were turned, after I found Jordell walking with you through the streets and joined him." She sighed with relief. "Why would you take it?" she grumbled. "Give it here." Jem put it in her hands. She stuffed it beneath herself on the straw pallet. "When you got here, you raved like a mad girl. You curled yourself around it and would not open your cloak, raving that Auntie would take it away again. So once they stepped out of the room to fetch you water and blankets, I whispered that I would hold it. That was the only way you would calm enough for them to help you." "I thank you, then, especially since you returned it in the end." "Of course." Jem's face lit with a small, proud smile. "You are my new mistress now. One never steals from one's mistress." Lauren scowled, but she reached out and tousled his hair. "I am no one's mistress. I work alone with neither partner nor lackey." "Oh, of course, and I will work alone with you." She grinned. Then the door opened, and Jem backed away as Jordell swept into the room. One look at his face told Lauren something was wrong. Jordell's light blue eyes were clouded over with concern, and mayhap even anger. He looked at Lauren as though he had never seen her before, and his whole body fairly shook. "What?" said Lauren. "What is wrong?" Jordell glanced at Jem. "Leave us." His voice radiated command, but even so, Jem drew up and placed his hands on his hips. "I am no lackey of yours." He thrust a finger at Lauren. "I am a lackey of hers." "Jem, go." Lauren did not know what troubled Jordell, but she yearned to find out. The boy looked at her a brief moment, scowling, but he left. Jordell closed the door behind him and then went to sit at Lauren's side, legs crossed over one another and hands upon his knees. "Lauren of the family Nelda," he said, and it sounded like an intonation. "I must ask you something of the utmost importance, and it is of the same importance that you answer me true." Lauren shrank back a bit, looking at him in confusion. "Jordell, I ask again, what is wrong?" "Where did you get your dagger?" Lauren balked, taken unawares. "Why?" "Do not hedge with me. Give me your answer." His hands balled into tight fists. For a moment, Lauren feared him, seeing again her father before he struck. At that thought, resolve fled her. "I stole it," she said. "When I left home, My parents held it close by for many years. I saw it once as a small child, and when I determined to run away from home, I decided to take it with me." Jordel's hands relaxed. "You swear this is the truth? You did not take it from any other? From a traveler upon the road, or from a corpse?" "No!" cried Lauren, aghast. "I am no grave robber." Jordel's head bowed. "That is good. That is most excellent for both of us. And at long last, I truly understand what has brought you and I together so often in so short a span of time." "What? What is this thing? Some few seem to recognize it, and always they fear it, and fear me as well. Why, Jordel?" His eyes flashed. "Well, they might, but the story is far too long to tell now. We shall discuss it upon the road." "The road?" said Lauren. The conversation jumped and took so many turns that she knew not where to go next. "What road?" "You aim to leave the city, do you not? I will come with you. It is now more urgent than ever that I find Zane and keep the two of you together, and safe." "Safe? Safe from what?" He leaned in close and answered with yet another question. "Lauren, you asked once why constables would bow to me in the street. And when first we met, you did not remark upon my cloak except with a passing glance. Tell me, does this mean anything to you?" He reached for the clasp that held his cloak around his throat. Lauren stared again at the strange symbol, 3 rods of silver wrapped by a band and mounted on silver wings that stretched wide. "It has no meaning to me. It is the symbol of the mystics, who count me among their number. Now do you understand any better?" Lauren blinked and shook her head. "No. Why should I?" Jordel stared at her, incredulous. "Stars and sky, from what rocky hole have you climbed, girl?" He shook his head and made to rise. "Never mind. It will have to be another tale for the road, one upon which I fear we shall wander for a long time together." "Hold, please." Lauren grabbed his wrist and kept him seated. His brows drew together. "Some questions may wait for the road, but some may not. Alan told me the snakebite would not have killed me." "No," said Jordel, and his voice grew soothing again. "In your raving, you told him the shape of the snake. A clouded viper, I believe he called it. Alan said its poison disorients greatly, but does not kill." "Damaris told me I would die." "She lied," said Jordel with a shrug. "But why?" "I do not know." Lauren stared, but nothing else came. "That is all? You do not know?" "What do you wish me to say, Lauren? It seems Damaris did not wish to kill you, or mayhap she meant to do so later. She will have to wait a while." Lauren blinked. "Why do you say that?" Jordel cocked his head with a small smile. "Damaris has been run from town with the king's law hard at her heels. It seems that even her powerful friends could not protect her from the constables once they found a great mess of maidstones scattered throughout her room." Lauren sank back with a sigh of relief. "That is one problem removed, then. And what of Auntie?" Jordel shook his head. "I know not of whom you speak, but Lauren, no matter what you wish to know, it must wait. We must be upon the road, and not yesterday. I must prepare the carriage." He rose and left at last, and Jem returned with a bowl of broth. Lauren did not recognize the taste, but only knew that it seemed the best she had ever eaten. Her stomach growled and gurgled, but it took every drop and begged for more. "You get your wish," she said when she had finished the bowl. "We are leaving the city with Jordel." "His badge will get us through the gate at least," said Jem. "Although you could probably flash your cloak at the guards and they would let you through. That is over here, by the way." He went to the end of her pallet where her travel sack waited atop the folded-up cloak. Lauren waved it off. "I have no need of it now, and I doubt it would scare the guards any more than would your rag of a shirt." "Oh, but you are infamous now," said Jem, sitting beside her again. There are whispers in every tavern in the city about you. Of course, they do not know it is you, but I do. They say you knelt in your cell and prayed to the shadows, and they filled your cloak. Then you wrapped it around the jail door, and it burst open at your touch. They say when you strode out, all the guards cowered in fear at the sight of you." Lauren's eyes bugged wide. "What? Who says this?" "Everyone," said Jem. "Everyone who has a tongue to wag." Lauren cocked an eyebrow. "Well, I have only heard one person tell the story, but that is no matter," said Jem, waving a hand airily. "It is all the same." "Jem, who was the one person?" He avoided her look for a while, but when she would not drop her gaze, he tilted his head back and forth. "It may have been I." "The tale could not lie further from the truth," said Lauren. She paused, reluctant to discuss the finer details of her escape. It did not make for a glamorous tale. But Jem took her hesitation for something else and tapped the side of his nose. "Of course, I understand. Any great thief must have her secrets. Only I wish I had known you were so mighty. Where was your magic when we fought Auntie?" "It was not magic," said Lauren sullenly, taking another sip of her soup. "Just never you mind." Jordell returned before long to tell them the carriage was ready. Lauren tried to find her feet, but she kept slipping back to the pallet and blankets. Jem helped her up, and Jordell fastened her cloak around her shoulders. He pointed at the dagger on her hip. "Ensure you keep that hidden. Under no circumstances must you let anyone see it." Lauren nodded, mute and suddenly fearful of the weapon at her waist. Her hand closed around its sheath. She could scarcely walk, so Jordell scooped her into his arms and took her to the carriage that waited behind the apothecary. They rode quickly through the streets, the driver pushing the horses to a trot whenever he could. Before long they reached the south gate, where guards stood forth with pikes to block the way. But Jordell emerged and showed them the symbol on his cloak, and the pikes parted. Lauren knew she should stay hidden, but she could not resist peeking through a raised corner of the curtain as they passed through the city gate. She poked her nose out the open window and took a long breath. Free, clean air. She had not realized how deeply she missed it, but it smelled like life after the clustered mess of the city. "Upon the road once more," she said. "I had forgotten how life felt when not surrounded by enemies in every corner." "A relief, to be sure," said Jordell. "Now, where did you arrange to meet the wizard?" "Zane said he would ride south until sundown. There he would wait by the road for our arrival. If they saw no sign by the third day, they would move on." "They?" "He travels with our companion, a girl." Lauren did not think Jordell would enjoy knowing Annis was Damaris's daughter any more than Zane had. Jordell leaned out the window and urged the driver on. The man put whip to hide, and soon they clipped along at a rapid pace. The carriage bounced and jostled constantly, and Lauren winced with every sudden movement. Jordell looked at her with concern. "I could have him slow." "Do not," she said through gritted teeth. "We must make haste. The day wears on." To distract herself, she had the carriage stop once they were out of sight of the city and took a seat beside the driver upon his bench. Looking at the open sky and the wide grasslands let Lauren's mind wander from the aches in her body, and it would let Zane and Annis see them coming besides. But the bench had no cushions, and soon her rear grew sore from the jostling. They did not stop for lunch, instead eating as they rolled on. The sun continued its long march across the sky and soon went to greet the western horizon. Lauren kept a careful eye on the sparse woodlands that sprang up on either side. If she were Zane, she would have pulled off into hiding beside the road, waiting for Lauren to appear. They would see her clearly atop the carriage, so long as they kept watch, and Lauren knew Zane would do so. If he did not, Annis would insist upon it, and probably scream at the wizard until he relented. The sun grew ever closer to the horizon. Lauren's search became frenetic. No one revealed themselves. She saw no other carriages. The sun dropped below the horizon. The driver pulled off the road. "Wait," said Lauren as he climbed down from his seat. "We must ride on. They may still be ahead." Jordell emerged from the carriage. "We cannot push on past nightfall. The road is not safe, and the horses will have trouble finding their way besides. Zane is gone, Lauren." His words hit her like a punch to the gut. She scrambled from the driver's seat, her head swimming as she reached the ground. Almost she fell, but she righted herself at the last moment. "They would not have gone. Zane would not—" She could not finish the thought, for of course, Zane would have left. He had left her once. "Annis," she said, grasping now. "Annis would not have let him." "Zane is a man grown and a wizard besides," said Jordell. "If he determined to leave, your friend Annis could not have stopped him. At most, she would have found herself abandoned, and we have not seen her either." "They could be just over the next hillock. We cannot stop now." Lauren hated the desperation that crept into her voice, but she could not help it. Jem emerged from the carriage and looked at her sadly. "They did not press their horses hard when we left, Lauren. Like as not, we already passed the place where they would have stopped. Zane did not wait until the third day, if he waited at all." Lauren stood rooted, unable to move, unable to think. She could not fathom it. After all she had done to find him, the wizard had left her again. But Annis, the thought of Annis riding on without them struck her to the marrow. She sagged to her knees, sitting cross-legged upon the ground. Mute, she could only watch as the driver hobbled the horses and built them a fire. Once it burned brightly, Jordell came to her. "Come, Lauren," he said softly, his voice soothing as always. "Sit and eat. We must ride hard tomorrow if we hope to catch them." Lauren blinked up at him. "Catch them?" He gave a small smile. "Of course. You do not think I would give up so easily, do you? I have sought Zane from the High King's seat to Cabras. I will not give up the search now. Tomorrow we press on, and we will find them. We do not know why they left. Mayhap they were discovered or hard-pressed once they left the city. We will find them. Come." Still numb, Lauren let him lead her to the fire. Its warmth bathed her face, and she felt herself grow fuzzy again. It burned like the snake's poison, but gentler, pleasant. She drew her arms around her knees and wrapped her cloak about her, reveling in the feeling, while Jem, Jordell, and the driver made a meal of bread and salted meat. "I trust Annis," said Jem, out of nowhere. He glanced at Lauren as she looked at him in surprise. "If they left, they had good reason. I trust her. She would not have let them go otherwise." "Mayhap you are right," said Lauren. "Mayhap." "I know I am," said Jem, sniffing and sticking his nose in the air. "After all, I could have been a scholar." "So I have heard." A restlessness seized her, and she reached to her belt to draw forth the dagger. As she pulled it from the cloak, it glinted sharp in the moon's light, shocking her. The glimmer died away, and she noticed a speck of dirt upon the edge. She wiped at it with her cloak. Looking up, she saw Jordell eyeing her from across the campfire. She would expect a story from the mystic, something to explain the blade and the hidden power it seemed to contain. But not tonight. Tonight, she found herself content to sit quiet under the stars in the warmth of a fire. Tonight, they had lost their friends, and tomorrow they would find them again. Lauren wondered how long the chase would run, and what would happen at its end. Again she found herself cast out upon the world with no plan or purpose beyond the one that had driven her from the birchwood. A shadow in the night, a ghostly whisper passing between the gates of a city, guards staring at each other, stricken by a nameless fear. Justice for the weak, and terror to those who wielded their power ruthlessly. The purpose seemed no nearer now than it ever had, and yet it burned within her just as bright. Jem sniffed again, took a final bite of meat, and unfurled a blanket upon the ground. He rolled away from her, drawing the cloth over his head. "Until tomorrow, then. Good night, Lauren." "Yes, a good night," said Lauren, murmuring as if to herself. "And Lauren I am. For now." The dagger whispered back into its sheath, like the parting murmur of an old and trusted friend.
This has been a production of Legacy Books, written and narrated by Garrett Robinson. The music in this podcast was created by Will Musser. Check out his incredible work at willmusser.com. That's WILLMUSSER.com. Today we have 2 letters for you, R and O, and that completes this season's secret message. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.